Welcome to Rough Drafts, How God Writes His Love in Our Stories, a podcast that explores the faith journeys of our friends and neighbors in Burns, Tennessee. Everyone has a story to tell, and in this podcast, we'll hear powerful and inspiring stories of how God works in the ordinary lives of people like you and me. Our stories are unfinished and perfectly imperfect. They are just rough drafts, a glimpse of what is to come because God is still at work, writing plot twists, introducing new characters, and bringing good even from the most challenging circumstances. Join us as we see what God is up to in our stories. Here's your host, Matthew Hyatt.
Well, we have another educator with us today, a volleyball coach, I think, a descendant. Oh, that sounds like everyone's dead or something. A descendant of one of the great preachers of our region, Wild Bill.
Yes.
We have Brittany Hardin today. Welcome.
Hey, thanks.
You're here?
I'm here. I'm here.
You know, it's been funny to me. I knew people would be nervous about doing this because it's weird to put a giant microphone in your face and talk to somebody. Like, this is not what normal people do for fun.
No.
But I don't think I was actually prepared for just how freaked out people would be, but then how happy they would be when they left.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it was over and the torture was done. A little Stockholm Syndrome thing going on. But so far, everybody's been pretty glad when we finish. So I hope that's your experience today. So tell me what you're doing in the university these days. You're teaching, you're coaching. What's the Brittany story?
I'm doing both. I taught second grade for 9 years, and then I had already gotten my master's in SPED, and that was kind of my intention to move into that role at some point. My mom kind of led the way with special education. She was a life skills assistant, and she's always had a heart for them, and I think that just trickled right down to me. So I've just always had a love for, special needs babies or kids that, just don't quite get it, that need that extra little bit of push. So I made a big jump. The job wasn't available at the school that I was at the time. So the principal at the middle school, let me know there was a job opportunity, and then volleyball fell in my lap from there, which has been huge.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Well, yay. Well, this is fun because sometimes when I come in, I kind of know somebody's story. I'm like, hey, you're going to talk about X, Y, and Z. But other times when we do this, I have absolutely no clue because other than like the stories we told while we were on the mission trip together last summer,
right?
In my introduction, I almost told everything I know about you. So I have no clue what your story is. This is going to be fun.
Great.
So what's your God story?
I feel like I'm a pretty typical person. Just, I grew up Church of Christ, Bill Schaus, my sweet little granddaddy, I grew up going to Midway.
Midway is midway between Charlotte and Ashland City.
Yeah, literally. So Midway Church of Christ, right?
How long has your granddad been at that church?
Oh my gosh.
It's 50-something years, isn't it?
At least.
Maybe
because he was at James Avenue, and then he went there. And I mean, it's been since my mom was teeny, and she's 50. Gosh, she'll be 54 this year. My mom will.
We've got to do this with your grandpa. He's got some stories.
He has lots of stories. He's had a total God-filled life. So it's been, it's nice to see him, and
he's one of my favorite kind of just cool, encouraging, real people.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say you don't always run into that in preachers' meetings, but he was a bright, shining star in the preachers' meetings. I love Bill.
The person you see on Sunday is the person you see Monday through Friday and on Saturday and every other day in between. He is the most constant, just positive. He is who he is, and I love that about him.
I guess when I came to town, I got to know him through those preachers' meetings, and, he was at the preachers' meetings, sort of dressed like a preacher, all that sort of stuff. And then I came to Camp Leatherwood to speak at some point, and there he was in shorts destroying people in volleyball at like upper 70s. And it was sort of like, what is happening?
Yes.
I love him. He is so cool.
Me too.
Okay, so this episode is actually called the Bill Schaus Fan Club. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. We'll catch you. We'll catch you next time. So that had to have had a big impact in your faith, having a granddad like that.
Absolutely. And, again, like I think we've talked about so many times, like I feel like the men are always the ones that kind of get to stand out and shine. But my grandmother, 100%. Look, I'm already start crying. I'm already in this, going to start crying.
This is a record, 4 minutes, 23 seconds. Yeah.
But my grandmother, I think there's times that my grandfather would agree that he's who he is because my grandmother was such a strong supporter. And she's always been the one that, got the kids where they were going. She always took care of us and made sure that, the grandkids were doing so he could, be who he is, for everybody else. She kind of did all the stuff behind the scenes. But that is one thing I can 100% say is I have two of the best grandparents that ever walked, two of the best examples you could ever, ever, ever hope for to mold your life after. So
I'm really grateful. That's the thing I don't think people understand or appreciate about. And it's not just ministry. It's true of a whole lot of vocations and careers. But like you and I are sitting down on a Monday at 5 something in the afternoon recording this. So like Leslie is carrying a little bit extra load right now.
Right.
So that I can be here to do this.
Right.
And, if she were against that, this wouldn't happen. So,
right.
I know this is not the point of today's show, but one of the things I forget who told me fairly early in ministry. They said, make sure people know that your wife is not an employee of the church. She is not the preacher's wife.
Yeah.
She is a member here, and she does what she does. And the moment anyone tries to do anything different, you go for blood.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we were given that advice and that the Church of Burns has been so good to let her be her, not try to force her to be the first lady of the Burns Church or some garbage like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. That's enough about my family and your grandparents.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the church?
I did. I was at Leatherwood the year you came because that is how I knew you. You got identified as the guy who rode the bicycle backwards for me.
Oh, yeah.
You will forever go down in my memory as that person. But yeah, I grew up. I got to go to Leatherwood early because Pawpaw was there. So I kind of got to jump into that. I went on my first mission trip when I was 9 years old. My mom got major ridicule for that. Maybe I was 10. I might have been 10, but I mean, she did. We went to Guyana, South America, and lots of people, really gave her a hard time for that. It's ignited my love for missions, and that's, been a thing ever since. And so I grew up, Midway small. Anybody who knows Midway knows it's really little. I was one of, very few growing up. I didn't have, a huge youth group. We went in and out of some great youth ministers, and I was actually baptized at the age of 8, which a lot of people, are like 8, but I felt like I had a really strong background and I had a great family that really encouraged me a lot. So, a lot of people would say, well, you're, 8 years old, but I was ready. Like I knew it. I knew in my heart, and my pawpaw, he was real particular about asking me all the questions and sitting me down. And
you had to write a dissertation to satisfy him on that one.
Practically. And he looked at my mama one day and he said, she's ready. Yeah. Like she is ready. So I started that journey really early, and to say that I've, fallen off of that a ton of times is, typical for anybody. But, I believed the things that, I grew up being told, and I had sweet little Sunday school teachers, and I've always had, great people to encourage me. And, I feel like I was just a really good kid. I kind of just lived that life that, I enjoyed going to church. I enjoyed being there. We were involved in any and everything. We were there every time the doors opened.
Every time the doors were open.
Listen,
I knew that was the phrase.
If you weren't like dying and dragging a limb, my mother was like, we're there. Like, there's no excuse. I'm pretty sure there's a time or two we might have shown up with fever. Let's be honest.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I
had that same sort of like church upbringing that I think I remember 2 or 3 times total that I was on a couch and it just felt so wrong to be at home
absolutely.
while the rest of the family was at church.
Oh my gosh, what's going on? Yeah. So, we never missed. And so I just feel very blessed. I feel like I had a very strong childhood. I experienced the family trauma. My mom went through a lot, and, my adopted dad, he, struggled with addictions. And so I dealt with those things, but my mom's faith through all of that was always so strong and such a good, example for me. And, we leaned on each other through a lot of things, and that relationship has continued now. She's one of my best friends, and, she's kind of my person. She's my prayer warrior for sure. If I need a prayer, I just tell Mama and I know that it's covered. So my mom's kind of had, a huge impact on just keeping me grounded to know that, no matter what you go through, like, keeping your faith is everything. And, my grandparents are supportive, but I think my faith kind of took a really big turn when I went to college.
Okay.
I had a full ride to MTSU, and my best friend was going there, and I kind of had my heart set. Like, I wanted to play volleyball. That was always my goal, to play volleyball in college, and I loved it. And, I had my life. I'm kind of a mapper. Like, I map my life out, and I feel like I really have my plan. They say, make plans, God laughs. I really did. Like, I kind of just knew what I wanted to do. And
you had the schedule in the
I
spreadsheet.
did. Like, I was like, I'm going to do this thing. I was that kid. I always wanted good grades. I always wanted, to make everybody proud. I kind of coasted through high school and did my thing. And I had, good friends. And so, Faulkner University was where I went.
Okay. So not MTSU.
Not MTSU. And the craziest part is I went into a lot of debt to go to Faulkner University, which is nuts. But we went to Winterfest, and I think I just wound up going by their table and filling something out to get something for free. Let's be honest.
I mean,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
And they just kept coming, and they just kept, I already had my mindset. I already kind of knew what I was going to do. And it's like my mom said, they just kept sending us mail, and it was here's this scholarship, and here, come for this. And the last one was a Scholars Day invitation. And it was, you're based on your ACT, whatever, like, you could come earn more money, come for the weekend, just tour, let us see what it's about. And at the time, my stepdad, he was like, let's do this. And my mom's like, what do you mean? He's like, let's do it. Like, let's take her. Let's just see, and I got there, and I told Mom, I was like, this is cool. And I'm a family girl. I'm not wasn't going to go super far away from home, anything like that. And so going there, I think, kind of changed my faith because it allowed me to figure out who I was. I got plugged into an amazing campus ministry, Landmark Church. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know who Buddy Bell is, but golly, I could just eat him up. He is just one of the best. And he actually was, at him and my pawpaw they took turns at our wedding, because he meant so much to us. So we got plugged in at Landmark and the Landmark campus ministry, and it was just like, it was Christianity I hadn't experienced before. It was, you craved being there. You just wanted to be there every moment. It was like if they had an event, you wanted to be there because it was.
These are your people.
Yes. And it was so nice. And it was, where I met Vance, and it just, everything started to click. And I told Mom, I said, this is totally God. Like, he had every intention of me going to Faulkner. And then, within a year, I got a volleyball scholarship.
Okay.
And so I
kind of walked on.
I did. I jumped in. I decided after my first year that I just wanted to just be there and do my thing. Yeah. And I did that. And my coach there, Tori Bartels, was phenomenal. She actually went to church with us. So it was really cool that I kind of got plugged in there. And so
multi kind of dimensional relationship there. The coach thing, the church thing, the school thing.
And some people from back home came, and so we kind of got to make some connections for back home. And, it was just, Vance is from Mississippi, and it's like, my parents find out I'm dating this Mississippi boy, and they're like, what in the world? Like, he's from Mississippi. You're supposed to be coming home to Tennessee. Like, this is not part of your plan.
So
like,
that's where you guys met. I think I'd missed that part of the story.
Yes. And he actually wasn't there for school. He came for a job. So It's crazy. He got a call from Montgomery, Alabama, and he had no intentions of moving away from home either. And he took this job maintaining this huge nursery there. And he was young, and he started attending through one of our mutual friends, invited him to the campus ministry, and, the rest is history with us. And it was super cool because it was within a very short amount of time that we met. And so we split our time between Mississippi and Tennessee. And, we both came from a very small church. And so we both were kind of, we'd always say that we kind of took over the youth group, and we were kind of, the ones that were there all the time. And so we didn't always have big and lots of participation always. And so to be in a place like that, I think it just really changed our faith and who we were. And
Landmark was a landmark for you.
It was. I mean, it started, I'm not going to say I questioned things that I grew up learning, but I had the opportunity then to ask questions.
Well, look, if your faith at 30 is not different than your faith at 18,
yeah,
you weren't lucky enough to get it all right at 18. I'm sorry, ain't nobody that it's
right.
not a good sign if you don't have some questions and some different answers and some different questions at different stages along your life.
Yeah, and it was just, I had the opportunity to talk to lots of people who had lots of experiences and had been through a lot of things. And that's not to say that you can't get that here. It was just, when your congregation is, as small as they were, I mean, you're limited to who you talk to, your interactions and things. And it just felt like, the world kind of opened up when we went there. And, I just kept telling Mom, I'm like, this was all God. Like, I got plugged into an amazing education program there. I mean, I would say hands down, probably one of the best education programs. I got really close with a couple of the teachers that I had. They wound up giving me a bunch of their stuff. Like,
oh, how cool.
I mean, it was just, I built lifelong relationships with people and met some of my best friends. And
I did the Freed Hardeman thing.
Yes.
And when I went to Freed, I was encouraged by some church members to go do it. But I remember you know how people get the job on campus of being like admissions reps?
Uh-huh.
I still remember the guy who called me.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Post is his name. And we ended up going to church together. Sheer accident, providence, coincidence, whatever.
Oh, wow.
But it was such a home to us. And there's things about that campus that aren't always the healthiest.
Yeah.
And there's criticisms of Christian schools, the cost.
Absolutely.
The debt. I mean, there's some legitimate issues that have to be talked through. Mm-hmm. But people who have not had that experience of living on those campuses don't understand what a cool relational time it is. I remember thinking about a month in, it's like if church camp never stopped.
Yes.
It's kind of what it was like.
Absolutely.
And I mean that in the most positive way.
Yes.
It was so cool to have these friends and these relationships with professors that my state school friends dreamt, like when they found out like that we'd have dinner at our professors' houses like every week.
Yeah.
Like, you did what?
Yeah.
And we look back and probably roll our eyes at some of the rules and the curfew and some of the stuff that was a little bit whatever. But
yes,
the relationships that come from that was some cool stuff. I mean, probably the funeral I've cried the hardest at was one of my professors.
Yeah.
Which, you don't hear people saying that at UT.
Right.
I'm sure somebody does, but it's not par for the course.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's, and I agree, a lot of my family went to Freed. That, is a big piece of my family. And, we actually haven't had anybody go through Lipscomb. We've had family members work there, but it's been Freed. And then I was the only one, that went Faulkner. And
yeah. All my people were Harding, so
yes.
They thought I was a traitor.
And it's crazy because it's like a school that never existed in my mind until Winterfest happened. And, but yeah, it was a good time for me to learn a lot about myself. Mm-hmm. Just, I guess, figure out who I was, what I believed, what really stuck out to me, the kind of person that I wanted to be, the things that I was really interested in. Yeah. Serving has always been something that, I've watched my parents do for a long time. I've watched my grandparents do. And, when you're younger, I mean, you have your opportunities, but I feel like they took the time to really find where I plugged in and utilize me in a lot of different ways there at Landmark. And there was never a time that you couldn't figure out, where to be, how to go. I went to Turkey through them and for 2 full weeks. And it was, I got lots of experiences that I will never forget and that I will never not completely appreciate.
Yeah.
Just growing and becoming, who we were because, fast forward, we moved back and it's like, Vance and I struggled for a little while just trying to figure out where do we fit in.
Yeah.
Because you come from a church like Landmark and then you move back and you're like, holy moly. And we came back from Midway and we became the youth ministers, really quickly after we came back. We just wanted to plug in and we wanted to make a difference. And so
people don't prepare you for that transition either because, When you're at a Faulkner or a Harding Lipscomb, wherever, we had daily chapel at 10:30.
Yep.
Every night there was a devotional at 10:30. So 10:30 was the holy half hour,
right.
is what we called it. And, you've got the Freed required a Bible class every semester. I know each school has a different way of doing it. But as much as we griped about it, people were pouring into us spiritually every day of the week. And then you come out of that. And in my case, I came out to do ministry, and you start doing it, and you pour out every day of the week, and all of a sudden, none of the things that are pouring into you are there anymore. And that's a weird transition.
It's very weird. And, it's kind of like leaving your church home too. I mean, it's something we talked about. I had a job offer there before I left, and so did Vance. And it was like, we really had to make that choice. Like, what do we do? Do we stay?
That was hard to turn down.
It was, because his was, a very lucrative job with someone from the church that he really respected and loved. And mine was through the Christian school that I got time to do hours with and fell in love with, that was, on the backside of campus. And so we had lots of opportunities, and, Vance had a house there, and we got married over the summer. I had to student teach. So we were there, and we just had to make a lot of big decisions in a short amount of time. And, I think that made us stronger in a lot of ways. And that's what probably allowed us to come back and just kind of find our place, just trying to figure things out and be very prayerful and have our family, and our church family prayed over us. I mean, they all, were so encouraging and wanted the best for us. And, they understood when we turned things down, and we, ultimately I wanted to go home. Family has always been a huge piece of my life, and it's who I am.
Right.
We get together almost every Friday night to have dinner, all of us. And we haul all 20 something of us on vacation every single year. Like, we're very close. And so it was something that I craved.
I like 27 people well enough to vacation with them. I just want to throw that out there.
Hey, and we do it. And we may not like each other all the time, but we do it.
That's family.
It is. But we moved back, and, we pushed into that. And I think that was really good for us. It challenged us in a lot of ways. I've got some stories and some memories and things that I look back on, and I go, what were we thinking? Holy cow. Like, did we really do that? And we had those conversations, and we sat up late, and we got late night phone calls from teenagers dealing with some serious stuff. We were out in, when you start pushing out into those places, and, you're looking at some economically disadvantaged and some different things and some home lives that are just not pretty. I mean, the majority of our kids were van ministry. I mean, they didn't have parents that showed up for them. They didn't have family. It was, we pick you up from your house so they can have a break from you for a little while, and you can possibly get fed and have some food and get a snack and, get some loving, and then we drop you right back off at your house. And then, Vance and I very much became parents, very quickly. And
it's funny when you become parents to teenagers before you have your own kids.
Absolutely.
That's another ministry phenomenon people don't appreciate.
Absolutely.
We waited a while before we had kids, and church people keep asking why we hadn't had kids yet. And we'd say, because we hang out with yours.
Right. We're spending all of our time. I literally think we've had the same conversations with people, because we waited about 3 years before, we had Ledger. And we spent the majority of that time, working with the youth and trying to stay plugged in and doing all those things. And then, of course, I started teaching, and Vance was working. So we had our things going. But we got pregnant with Ledger. And, at that time, I just told Vance, I said, I think we have to start thinking about our own kids at this point, and I was very blessed to have a really strong family and to have people supporting me growing up there. But we knew, Landmark is where we came from, and we always aspired to find something, along those lines. And so we kind of made that decision about the time that Ledger was born, that, we might try to venture out somewhere else and take a different path. And so we stepped down, and we shifted to Pilgrim Church of Christ, which, was a little bit bigger and had kids that were, in our realm, our world where I was teaching. So I knew a lot of the people, and my mom and stepdad were going there. So our family chose, and that was a really hard time probably in my life, because my whole world, I had grown up, with Granny and Pawpaw, and I knew, I was going to go back, and I was, you want to feel supportive of them and you want to be there. But, it was one of those things where it was like, at this point, I have to make sure that we're doing what's right for our family. And so we made that move, and Pegram was wonderful, and they've been so good to us. They were with us through, both of our babies, and, just small groups. And
it's a great church.
It is great.
And there's some amazing people, except for Jason Allison. He's the devil.
Is he? I tell
horrible.
you, he gives you a run for your money. That's for sure. He'll pick on you when you least expect
He's
it.
amazing. He's one of the sharpest wits that I know.
Yes.
But that whole,
It's funny.
I mostly know the staff just from our church interactions, but Courtney and Aaron and so many others, they do some good stuff, and I have mad respect for that church.
Yeah. Well, and I went to a baby shower there last Sunday, and I said, we didn't leave because we were upset with them. We left because we moved to Buddy Road. Yeah. And we're like, we're 3 minutes, and, we're very much, you got to be close when you got kids, and we need to keep our kids plugged in, and we need to do all those things. So we made that tough decision to move out here, and change up. And it's cool because it doesn't matter when we go back, it still feels like family just embraces you. You walk through the door and you're getting hugs galore, and it's nobody, they left, they went somewhere else. It's never been that way. And there's never been anything but just, we're still praying for y'all. We miss y'all. We love y'all. It's just been constant pouring in and pouring out, and all the things from them. And so they have been so great, and still really close relationships. I
just love that church.
Aaron all the time, because I work with his wife Lori at school, and Jack's in daycare with Thatcher, so we still get those interactions. So it's nice to feel like you've got family other places that you go.
Well, our experience this past summer doing Awake Camp with Pegram was so cool, and I really enjoyed that partnership. We've had a lot of partnerships over the years. We've partnered with White Bluff, and God has done a lot of cool things through that partnership.
Yeah.
A lot of people there I love and respect and appreciate.
Yeah.
But what we did this summer at Awake with that crew was just, it was refreshing to me, and it was pretty cool.
It is really cool. It's a great group. Their youth group is phenomenal, and their young adults, the GAP group like ours, super cool. My sister.
They've adopted our GAP group, and they've done a bunch of stuff together.
I love it.
Glow in the dark pickleball, I think, which I don't understand. How that's not done on drugs. I think it feels like that should be required.
Listen, Vicky and Greg are all about that pickleball, so that doesn't surprise me at all. That's where my sister, I think, got started doing it. So
pickleball or drugs?
Pickleball.
Okay, just clarify.
Michaela, if you're listening, I didn't insinuate that you're on drugs.
that was me, Michaela.
I love it. I would say that through everything, when somebody looks at you and asks, what's your God story? I know for sure that God's not done with me yet, and He's doing a lot of work in me right now.
Yeah.
I've dealt with a lot of stuff, and it's cool because I'm not going to say when I was younger that you're taught to keep everything in, because that's not necessarily it. I don't think I was exposed, and I heard a lot of things from a lot of people. I don't know. Sometimes I think as Christians, we have to put on this pretty face, and we have to act like everything is okay. And if your faith is big enough, and if you pray hard enough, then, and I saw my mom go through so much, but I saw her, keep her faith. And I mean, my grandparents went through a lot, they lost a child, and they've gone through a lot, but I didn't really know what it meant to be vulnerable and transparent as much when I was younger. I don't think I was ever shown that by a lot of people. And I think people were just afraid of judgment and of, being less than. And so, that's one thing. I went to college, and I was diagnosed with depression, and it was hard because, I had done it all right, and I'd followed the path. And so I kind of started like my mental health journey then. And it's been something that I've dealt with a lot. After I had Ledger, I had really bad postpartum, and had it not been for my church family and my family and my faith, like that would have been a very, very trying time for me, and so
I'm grateful, and I think we still have a lot of work to do here, but I'm grateful in the last few years, kind of a renaissance in the church of discussing mental health, depression. On this podcast, we've had conversations with Greer where he talked about that with Bethany Quinn, who talked about her experiences. Who else? Phil Cochran talked about some of his experiences. Joey Wink talked about some of his experiences. And like, I think sometimes, I don't mean to name drop, but I think when you find out that good, faithful Christians struggle with anxiety and depression, maybe it gives you permission to say, I need help too. I can talk about this. It's okay for me to not be okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where, I bedded that down for so long, and you don't share that with people, and you don't tell people those things. And, then I was at work, and I found out that some of the greatest educators that I knew, that I respected and mentored me, were in the same boat that I was in.
Yeah.
They're like, Brittany, we're on medication too. I go to a therapist. I do all the things. Like, it's not uncommon. And I guess it kind of gave me this empowerment that, like, I need to be that person. There may be somebody who needs to hear it from me.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, I have definitely struggled with for years. And I'm very thankful. I've had lots of resources and lots of people. And, education is very stressful. And so I think
I've heard.
Any educator would tell you, there's so much. And you bring a lot of that home. But I'm very grateful because I've had a very forgiving and understanding husband when I bring home a lot of those emotions and a lot of those experiences. And he's just been a good listener. And then he joined in the education world, and his literal words were, I had no idea. Like, I literally had no idea. And so sometimes being in a 2-educator household, it can be, a little crazy at times, and the emotions run pretty high, but it's definitely been a grace-giving situation. And sometimes people don't always understand you, and they don't get it. And it's really hard to explain where you're at, and you do feel like, there have been times where I've thought, well, if my faith was just stronger, if I was just a better Christian, would I be dealing with this, or would I be going through this? And, like you said, I mean, listening to Greer's had me in tears. It was so nice to hear somebody that I've seen get up on Sundays and literally say some of the most well-spoken, beautiful, heartfelt prayers, and just really get up. And he has a voice that I think I want to narrate my life story.
Yeah.
But
him or Morgan Freeman, I'm good with either.
But it's just like, I love just listening to him, but just to hear that somebody that I feel like, reflects such a mature Christian to deal with that, you're like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And I love that, the culture has kind of shifted to where people can be open about those things, because if you don't talk about it, it's like talking about it with people has been huge for me. But I also know that I have people praying for me.
Yes.
And I have people that are in my corner, and they're ready to, just be there at any turn for anything. So, that's been huge for me, because I've dealt with a lot of that stuff. 2020 was a year that I probably lost a lot of my faith. Truly. It was a hard year. I had the ups and downs of different things, and I questioned a lot of things. And, I don't think God is angry with me for it, but, I had some angry conversations with him, and I was very upset. We had Thatcher in the middle of COVID, and I got really sick, and I was hospitalized, and I turned septic, and, things got kind of bad. And then my retina detached, and I had all this cataract surgery, and all these things happened. And in the midst of all of that, we lost Vance's mom suddenly. She had a brain aneurysm and died after, months of being in the hospital, and she got to meet Thatcher one time. And so we have a picture of her holding him. And the only reason why I said, I look back now, and what was one of my greatest storms is one of the greatest blessings, because had I not been hospitalized, Mama would not have come, because they were afraid of COVID, and they didn't want to expose her before her surgery.
Gotcha.
But they came to help Vance with the boys while I was in the hospital.
Gotcha.
And so that was the only reason why Mama got to meet Thatcher.
Wow.
So we had just lost Vance's grandmother, within a year. And so it was like he lost his grandmother, and he lost his mom. And, I was dealing with everything. And, to know Vance's mom is to know one of the greatest people that has ever, just a light. She was a light beyond a light. And to lose her was huge. It was like losing my other mom. And I didn't understand, and I was very angry. And somebody who brought so much glory to his name, and somebody who was so great and was so much to us and to me, I questioned a lot in that time. And, Vance was grieving, and, our marriage hit a really huge snag. And we were both just in a place of it was just a lot. And
you've got about 400 major stressors happening simultaneously.
All at the same time.
Any relationship
Yep.
is going to have some major struggles going through that.
And we've just had a brand new baby, so we're juggling trying to be parents to two. I said COVID was a great thing and a terrible thing because I, didn't have to take maternity leave, and it allowed us to spend time at home as a family. But Thatcher had to have surgery within, 10 weeks of him being alive. He had to have, pyloric stenosis surgery because his muscles were growing weird in his stomach, and he wasn't digesting food. So, you're dealing with all that while I'm sick, while my eyes are failing, while I'm, and it was like.
And this is the time period where you can't have one person with you in a waiting room at a doctor's office
None.
while you're like.
I was completely alone through all of it. That was the hardest part is, I didn't have my mom there like it was planned, and my mother-in-law was supposed to be in the delivery room with us, and that didn't happen. And like so many things that I had planned didn't happen. And, I really started to question things, and, we weren't able to go to church. We were still watching online, but we weren't there. And I just think it was a time that I started to pull, and it was the time in my life where I probably felt the lowest.
Yeah.
And I just, it was just really hard. I questioned a lot of things, and I just got really down. And, when your marriage starts to hit a rocky point, that's hard too. And it just, we did a re-engage at Pegram.
That's a great program. I've heard it's really good.
It hands down, saved us. And at the time, and, we were just in a really, yucky place. And so re-engage, was really good for us. And then, the next year, it kind of just felt like it kind of some things just kept happening. My parents' house burnt down in July of the next year while my sister was on the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, I didn't realize that was at the same time.
Yep. She was on the trail and had to come home, take a break, and she came home for a little while, and she stayed with us. My mom and my stepdad were staying with my grandparents. And, some things have happened, with my mom and my stepdad, and, they're just kind of going through a period right now and trying to figure things out. And so it seemed like for a year solid, things just kept going.
The hits just
and
kept
it just kept coming, and it just kept coming. And, it felt hard. And, it just, sometimes when it rains, it pours. So it's like, then we got the house and we moved to Burns, and, I feel like we've kind of been on an upward trajectory of where things were. And, we've definitely, tried to plug in and find our space and different things like that. But, it's like when somebody tells you what's your God story, for me, I'm going right now, I'm still being worked on, like to this moment, like I'm being refined. And it's like, you feel like sometimes you're going through the fire, and, Vance and I are working on our marriage right now. We've hit another wall, and it's constant. Marriage is never a never ending work in progress. And
well, see, I appreciate you sharing that, because what sometimes unfortunately happens with a lot of the episodes in this, people wait to do this conversation until they're on the other side of all the stuff.
Yeah.
Until it's better and there's a happily ever after.
Yeah.
But I think stories in the middle of the fires, literally and figuratively, all the different things, because, it's clear from what you're saying, there's still grief, there's still marriage stuff, there's still career stuff, there's still kids stuff, there's still life stuff, and all of this stuff it's not over.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest myths that Christians believe, and it's not just a Christian thing, it's an everybody thing, we believe that progress should be linear and constant. Every day should be a little bit better than the day before. Like there should be constant improvement, but that's not the way life works. It's,
absolutely not.
It's fits and starts, and 2 steps forward and 7 back and 83 forward and 0 steps, 0 steps, 0 steps, 0 steps, 1 step. I mean, it's just, it's unpredictable. And there's no such thing as a finished story.
Nope.
I mean, if you're still breathing, the story has a lot left to be written. And that's important.
And it seems, sometimes it's like, it will be going pretty constant, and then, something hits. But that's why I've, my mom's always told me and my grandparents, that's why you have to have church family. That's why you have to have the people, that are in your corner that are going to fight for you when you don't have the strength to do it. When you don't have the words to pray, they can intercede for you, and they're there to do that. And you
that
feel
was the
comfortable.
thing that felt missing in 2020. I mean, your church family didn't cease to be, but relationships are made by proximity.
Absolutely.
I'm almost grateful for some of the 2020 stuff. I'm grateful because it caused churches to invest in some of the things that we can use to reach each other at a distance. Like, I think it's really cool how many podcasts spun up or video tools. I love that when it snowed, we still had a way to do something. That's something, like, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
But what it really did was demonstrate, I'm glad I had that as a placeholder. Yeah. But nothing beats people getting in rooms with each other, sharing meals with each other, doing life with each other.
Yep.
That's the magic sauce of church.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Spirit of God is the magic sauce of church. Okay.
Right.
The tools that he tends to use are mundane life together, being together.
Yeah.
Playing spoons and breaking someone's arm.
Absolutely.
That's part of where souls are formed.
Our small group, when we first got plugged in here, with the Coons and the Watsons, and just getting plugged in with people that are in the same walk of life we're in, with little kids, with, full-time jobs, with the crazy and the constant and the chaos. It's nice to feel normal, and to not feel weird.
You felt normal. That's cute.
Right. For a moment, maybe. Okay. But then just having those, real raw conversations with them, that it's a safe space and we can have those conversations. And it's like, you don't get that with everybody. And it's like, had we not had our faith through a lot of this stuff, would I have gone under? Would I still be here today? Would I still be, fighting for everything? Would, I still be fighting tooth and nail for my marriage, because it's like, when God puts two people together like he did me and Vance, I'm telling you, and I'll get emotional crying about it, but, it happened because he put us in the right spot at the right time.
Yeah.
Right when I needed somebody, and, he was that person. And, I feel like the same way, we both were each other's support when we were away from home and away from family. So it's like, if I had a worldly view of marriage, if I had a worldly view of everything, would I be fighting, to keep my best friend, to keep things, together, or, go through all the things? And it's like, that's something that, I've told him that I've loved the most about probably being at Burns is just, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to be transparent with people. I'm not, it's nice to be at this stage in my life where I'm going to tell you the raw and the ugly, and I'm just going to ask you to live in it with me for a minute and pray for me through it and be here. And I would hope people feel the same, so it's really cool where we're at. But like I said, it's a constant work, It's always being written, and he's always doing these awesome, great, amazing things. And I see him bless my family every day. And, our immediate family and my outside family, the blessings that he's, put on my mom and my grandparents and everybody, and just seeing people that live faithful lives and how they're blessed. And it's like, you want that, and I want that for my kids. And, just sometimes the world can just kind of drag you down a little bit, but it's
sometimes,
sometimes it's even your sermon, that you were talking about. It's like, when we talk about Jesus coming quickly, and it's like, it is hard to think about what our kids will grow up with and things like that. But it's, it's that idea that we have support, and it is so important to find your people.
Yeah.
And to do life with those people, but to also have a common goal. And we just want to get another soul to heaven in ourselves, and, the excitement to see mama again, or grandma again, or, those people that, we miss so much, or we're grieving now. And just,
I feel like we need like a circle of people to show up right now and start singing A Common Love or something. Like,
Right.
It feels like kind of the right way.
Right. That's where we're at.
But it's so true.
Yeah, it is. So,
well, man, Brittany, thank you for your encouragement today.
Yep.
Do you have any other stories you want to share with us?
No, I think I've may have told you more than you bargained for. Anybody listening's bargained for, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Throw up?
I did not, and I told you that I might, and
Here
I
we
didn't.
are.
Yay!
This is like our 60-something straight one with no vomiting.
No vomiting. That's awesome.
Someday that streak will end, but
not with
today.
me.
Not on your watch.
Not me.
Well, friends, thanks so much for listening, and I hope that today gives you permission to be a little bit more vulnerable, to share your story, to work with somebody, to fight for the things you care about. I also hope that maybe today it helps you appreciate the idea of a church family a little bit more, because it's kind of easy to see the warts and the wrinkles of church.
Yep.
Look, I know how the sausage is made. I know the problems. I know the politics. I know the ugly side. But I'm glad you heard Brittany tell you why this still matters.
Yep.
Because it does.
Absolutely.
Well, friends, you know where to find this podcast. I hope you will share it with somebody else, so maybe it will bless them too. Until next time, I can't wait to hear what God's up to in your story.
Thanks for listening to Rough Drafts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you are at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. Until next time, let's keep looking for how God writes His love into our stories.